And we are live. Hi, Adam. Welcome on the next umbraCoffee episode. It's our 8th episode, international episode. And we have a really great guest today, who is Matt Brailsford, Umbraco MVP, author of multiple packages for Umbraco. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Thanks for being here and joining us to the weekly news workaround, walk through. And we have a special day today, which is announced by Pete Duncanson yesterday, Umbra Tea Day, and we are all wearing Umbraco t-shirts. Yep. I forgot about taking selfie, so I will do it during the umbraCoffee episode today. When we will give a speak to someone else. And yeah, what we had this week, it was a really nice week in Umbraco community. I will start as I'm wearing an Umbraco Polish Festival t-shirt. We announced the date for Umbraco Poland Festival 2018. It will be on 21st September this year. And we also switched a site to be a countdown site. Let me share it shortly. And on this Sunday, we are starting sales of an early bird tickets. If you want to visit Poland, if you want to join us on the next edition of the Polish Festival, go to this site, umbracofestival.pl. You can check the previous edition, and you can go to Eventbrite to secure your ticket, which is in special price. And we have only limited number of tickets in this price. And yeah, if you thinking about joining us, just buy this early bird ticket. It will help us organize event and sleep well while waiting for the festival.
For those people coming from outside of Poland, the tickets are crazy cheap if you compare that to euros or pounds. Like, it's a £20 ticket at early bird prices, and you'll have a fantastic day, loads of cheap beer. Last year it was sunny, so that's a plus. It's usually pretty warm in September, so yeah, it should be a nice day. And the Polish community is super, super friendly. And
we already started working on the key value of the festival, so we will make sure that you, as a guest, will be happy and you will fill your knowledge gaps and everything else around Umbraco, and not only, because it will be for everyone, not only people interested in Umbraco. And the next one, Callum, you want to take care of it?
Yeah, so a couple of packages this week. Try to sum those up each week. There's another version of Translation Manager. I'm pretty sure last week we said there was one. Seems like Kevin's updating this all the time at the minute. Also, James South's Mapper has gone to version 1.1. He's got some new changes. I've still not given it a go, but I do intend to. It's supposed to be pretty powerful. I think James is doing quite a lot of work around performance benchmarking of things at the moment, and one of his big things that he's pushing with Mapper was it's going to be crazy fast, which kind of is another point we wanted to discuss. People were interested in knowing the benchmarks of Models Builder versus Ditto versus different like Zone Mapper or Mapper. James Ad's got like a Git repo where he's got some statistics in there, but he's after some contributors. Seems quite interesting. One to keep an eye on.
And he asked people who are going to use those packages to just test them in the real case scenarios and in the real world, because it may be fast, but maybe it won't fit the specific scenario, or it will fail in the speed or any other way in some point. So if you want to play with it, just feel free to contribute to James, because he is asking for help.
Yep.
And speaking about packages, we also had the discussion about making a migration tool for archetype into the nested content, which is created by Matt Brailsford also. Matt, did you think about making this type of converter or migration tool at some point?
I'd not before. I saw the tweets this morning, so it does sound quite interesting. It could get quite complicated with it depends whether you want to go down the route of dynamically generating the doc types based upon the fields that are in the archetype. That could get quite complicated, but it's all completely feasible. So yeah, it sounds quite a good way of migrating away to nested content, which is in core. So it's a supported route, and especially with archetype being sunset, it's one of those where it does make sense. So
I remember a couple of years back at a Bristol meetup and watching Lee demo some of the changes he'd made in Archetype, one of which was an extension method to convert Archetype to iPublish content. It was around the same time that nested content came out, and I instantly thought, oh, this is the perfect material for building a converter. It's been on my to-do list for many, many years, and I've just not got around to it. But we have some breaking news, which I've just been sent. Someone's already done it.
Okay.
So, Tom Morris from Zone and the Bristol community has already done Umbraco to, an archetype to nested content converter this morning, and he's just posted a link. This is hot off the press. 25 minutes ago, he released this.
Real-time news. Yeah, huge high five, you rock, man.
Yep, high five, you rock, Tom. We'll post a link in the description and retweet it and stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
And of course, we will also share links for everything what we are discussing here. So no worries, don't look for it. Just check the description below at the end of the video. We have one more news, and I'm not into the topic of GDPR laws and everything else like it, but there were a massive discussion on the Slack channel and on the Twitter as well. People were afraid how Umbraco will answer to the law changes and GDPR at all. So Kim Marcin from Umbraco HQ addressed those issues and wrote a really nice and long blog post about it. So there is a answer for most of there are answers for most of those questions, and definitely if you thought about GDPR and Umbraco and your work based on Umbraco, check it and leave your doubts there. Yeah,
it's good to see that they are taking it seriously. They've got in touch with some lawyers and they're working everything through. They've updated all their cloud, or they're in the process of updating all their cloud terms and conditions to be compliant. And also making a couple of changes so they can track kind of who changed what and when properly within the Umbraco CMS. And according to that blog post, we could expect to see that within the next month or so, which is exciting. Does look like they're taking it seriously, which is really good.
Yeah.
I guess
that's all from our list of news.
Yes, we can move on now to maybe talking a bit more to Matt. So. For those that don't know, Matt is part of a collective with the legendary Lee Kelleher called Unko. They released some fantastic packages together. So nested content and stacked content are some of the most recent things to come out of that. Nested content's obviously gone into core, but there's things like Ditto Mapper, Vorto. Have I missed any of the big ones?
They're probably the biggest ones, I think.
Yeah,
I can remember off the top of my head.
I mean, independently, Lee and Matt have been releasing packages for many, many, many years and have won MVP awards and things from it. So it's kind of two great minds coming together to build some fantastic things in the form of Unko.
Yeah.
Do you maybe want to talk about how you go about like the idea of building up a package, or?
Generally, we still pretty much work like independently, so we'll both come up with ideas and just kind of go away and work on them, because to be fair, the development is not like where we have support. We might bounce ideas off each other, but one person will probably get an idea, and then Umko essentially it's nothing kind of official, so it's not a company or anything. It's just a name to kind of sit kind of packages underneath where we essentially share the responsibility of maintaining those. So it's probably more about the maintenance than it is about the initial development. So like I say, one of us will probably go away, have an idea for a package, go away and build it, and then we just agree that we'll help each other kind of support those packages kind of moving forward, because that's probably the biggest thing. Once you've, especially when we're going kind of more and more complex in terms of the packages, they get a lot harder to kind of maintain. So it's nice just to have somebody who's got your back to kind of help you kind of manage those and just stay on top of issues. And
I know you took part in, or you ran an open space session at Code Garden this year discussing actually how can we make package development more sustainable. So supporting that kind of post-launch things, bug fixes, and you made a very good point, which is people do pull requests to help you out, but that then takes up some of your time So having a partner there that you can kind of both have each other's back is obviously a very good thing.
Yeah, it's worked for us. We've been doing it individually for a while, but I did actually write a blog post recently which kind of explains. I can just share my screen. So it does actually explain kind of where Unko came from and like the reasonings behind. So one of the reasons really was we would release things individually, and it would all be sat under our own kind of GitHub accounts. And then what you would get is everybody going to that one person to kind of ask for support or ask questions. So it wasn't working in that sense to kind of share the responsibility. So we just came up with Umko as a way to say, right, okay, we'll just put all our packages, all our repositories under one name, and then it's clear that they're supported as a group rather than individually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. And I noticed you actually you're showing off the your new blog there, which is or your new site, which is lovely. You tweeted about that this week. Nice new design.
Well done.
We'll post a link to the blog about what Umko is in the description.
Cool.
And what's also interesting, you've started a Patreon campaign.
Yeah.
And as an Umko, which is for whoever who is not familiar with the Patronite ideas, it's a way to support the creators. You have 15 patrons already, and there's a list of your packages, goals, and additional values which are coming for all of the patrons as well. So if anyone is willing to support you, can go to here and do it. And that's a great way. And I think that this is one of the points and ways to support open source creators.
Yeah.
Can you just briefly mention why you've decided to go to the Patreon and what other options were you considering at this time?
Well, I don't think Patreon would work for everybody. I think really Lee and I are quite unique in the Umbraco ecosystem at the moment. It's not to say people can't get there, but we have put a lot of hours and kind of built that reputation so people know, and we come up with quite a lot of packages. So I guess we're quite unique in that sense that funding through Patreon kind of funds quite a lot of packages that a lot of people rely on. So that's why that kind of works in that scenario. But would it work for an individual developer? I'm not quite sure. But again, this is an experiment for us anyway. So we're just seeing what does work. The only other kind of approach we were thinking about initially was going down the commercial package route. But there's a lot that goes on with making a package commercial, or the licensing or the marketing. So it sounds straightforward, but it really isn't. So when we're building packages, we'd much rather keep them open source and free, because then we don't have to deal with all of that convolution. And then Patreon on that side just keeps that whole simple, because we just say, well, everything's free, just kind of back us on Patreon and we'll distribute that kind of funds on the various different packages that we're working on. So it works great for us. I'm not sure it worked for everybody, but it's worth the experiment and just see, because I do think it's like I said, there's a lot of really big and detailed packages coming out now, and it'd be a shame not to kind of support those and kind of help. I think it will help grow Umbraco as a professional ecosystem, because it's great that we can build websites and we can do the services for people, but it would be even better if we can build it as a platform and allow kind of various other ways of people kind of earning a living essentially on top of that platform, and just kind of bring it up to like maturity of the levels, I guess, of kind of WordPress and things like that, where there's huge ecosystems around those platforms. So I'd love to see that from an Umbraco level as well.
Definitely. And the more people that commit to your Patreon, the more great work that you guys are able to do. You're able to invest a bit more time in developing new packages, adding features, stuff that we all use and love for free, but actually it costs you time and money to develop them. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be supporting.
No, it really does help, and it really allows us to justify kind of the hours that we put into those that are usually kind of like out of hours as well. So it just does help support us, and we're really grateful for everybody that's signed up so far. We didn't think it would it would go as well as it has, and we really haven't pushed it that hard either. So we're really grateful to everybody who has backed us and supporting us so far. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think that it also can make you more motivated to do more. And even if it's not a huge amount of money, and Lee did a great step for Christmas.
Yeah,
he donated his portion of the donations into the charity. So it's also something what you guys can give forward, and it's not only about earning money, because it probably never will cover the amount of time which you've spent doing your work. But yeah, it's great, and we highly encourage people to do it.
Yeah. So talking of Unko, we've been mentioning like all the packages you've been working on, and there is a new one on the block, which is Fluidity.
Yep.
This is the Fluid API for you to build. It will create content and dot types and configuration in Umbraco.
Yeah,
that's a decent summarization.
Almost. It's a Fluent API for building CRUD interfaces for custom data sources, is how I put it. So I'll share my screen again and just go through a few little bits. So
you've mentioned you are not the sales guy, but this slogan sounds really pro.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I have to explain it to myself constantly, so that's how I've kind of summed it down. So Fluidity has kind of come out of the work that I did on UImatic. So UImatic was by Tim Geesens, I think that's how you pronounce it, which this was a package that was in a package competition in London a few years ago. And it was a really great starting point, and I kind of came onto this and did a really big kind of pull request, putting in a few features that I'd really like to see. And I used that for a little while in a few projects. And I just started to see a few things where I thought I could kind of go one step further and kind of introduce some concepts and practices that I'd learned through kind of nested content and stacked content. So Fluidity is, I guess, my kind of step on from UImatic. And it's just trying to be a lot more, well, I guess it's a similar kind of flexible. We do the configuration kind of different. So in UImatic, it's kind of all attribute based. And if you know Ditto, the mapper that Lee and I built, that's also attribute based. And I've just been using it in a few projects, and you can get into a scenario where it's kind of death by attribute. So with Fluidity, it was looking at an alternative approach. So with Fluidity, we look more at kind of a fluid interface. So in here, this is kind of showing you how a declaration of how you would build a user interface up based upon a model. And then on top of the Fluid kind of API, the other kind of main feature, I guess, on top of what wasn't in UImatic is the reusing of property editors and things like that. So with UImatic, they had their own purpose-built or UImatic specific kind of field editors. So if you did one of the editors that was available in Umbraco, you couldn't use that, or you would have to kind of create some kind of crossover field editor. Whereas with Fluidity, I've gone down the route of kind of reusing as much Umbraco core as possible, which includes all the property editors. So when you're defining properties, you can just tell it which property data type that you want to use. We do support things like the upload control as well. So the way that Fluidity manages all of that is it builds all the user interface, but then it fakes kind of an Umbraco content pipeline. So when you do a save, it goes through all the same actions as what Umbraco does for content, but then redirects all the bits into kind of your custom database table.
Nice.
Yeah. So ultimately, both UImatic and Fluidity are very similar. Like I said, Fluidity is my kind of learnings and incorporating a lot of the stuff from nested content and things like that. And it's basically, if you've got a custom database table or a data repository somewhere, it could be an Azure blob, it could be Azure blob storage or some other kind of database somewhere that you need to manage, but you want to do it in Umbraco, but you don't want to manually build a user interface yourself, then this is where Fluidity would come in, because you could just define how you want, create a model, create a model, create the definition, and it will build the user interface for you.
Yeah, and it looks super quick to get started. So I could just literally strip one of those classes off your beautiful documentation site there, and have a very simple custom section with interacting with my own database table in minutes potentially, which is hugely powerful.
I've got it set up here so I can show you. So essentially all I've done is gone through this this documentation. So I've got a Visual Studio project. All this is just a web project with Umbraco installed and then Fluidity installed. And then I've got a database, which is my Umbraco database, but I've also got a person table. So this is just the definition that I've taken from the documentation site. So you've got a custom database table. Then in here, we will create a model. And then this is just using standard Petapoco kind of attributes. So we do all of out of the box. Fluidity is kind of Petapoco based, but you can change the repositories to kind of work with whatever you want. But obviously with Petapoco being shipped with Umbraco, it makes sense to kind of go the Petapoco route. So we just define our person model, which maps to the database table. And then we've got our Fluidity bootstrap kind of configuration here. So this is the thing that sets up the user interface. You can go kind of true fluid and just do dot notation after dot notation, but we also support this kind of nested approach, which is, I find it a lot clearer because you can see kind of the hierarchical structure of it. But you essentially start with a Fluidity config module, which has got a config method and it's passed the Fluidity config. And on this, you add a section, which adds a section to the left-hand side, define your tree, and then in the tree, you create a bunch of different collections, or you can create folders. And then inside there, we can do things like tell it what is the name property on our person model, what we want our view to be, so we can do tree views or list views in the UI. Then you configure what do you actually want to show on your list view, so which fields out of your property. And then same for the editor, we can define custom tabs and what fields we want based upon the property on our model. We can make things required. We can set validation, regular expressions, descriptions, and define what kind of data types you want to use. So as you can tell from all of this as well, all of this is strongly typed to our model. So when we're adding a collection, we tell it what our model is, and then all of these extra configurations down here are strongly typed. So again, this is one of the things in UI-matic, because it's all attribute-based, it's all stringly typed, so it's really easy to kind of get a configuration wrong, whereas all this is strongly typed, so it's all compile time. You'll know exactly if you've done something wrong or if something's not right. But once you've got this configuration, then you end up with a user interface. So just log back in. As you can see, down this left-hand side, I've got a database which aligns with my add section. Database here is my tree, and then I've got a people collection. And from here, it's automatically building this entire user interface for you. So you've told it which fields you want to show in the list view. Automatically supports like the various views of the list view. Can automatically search on your list view. And then when you go in, you can edit, and it's built all the editor interface for you. All the different properties, like showing the descriptions. You'll have your validation, different field types, so numeric tabs and upload fields. So you can basically lay out the entire kind of user interface based upon your model. And yeah, it's completely flexible.
It looks really nice. I have one question, because UI-matic saved my life multiple times. I've used it in a various projects. And what I liked the most lately was filter functionality. Okay. So when I was filtering data in a list view, do you support it, the same behavior here in the Fluidity?
So filtering in what sense? Sorry. So in your list view.
Yeah, you have your list view with data from a custom table, but you want to expose a filter, I don't know, to just pre-filter data in the list.
Yeah, so I haven't rendered one on here, but list view should have Yeah, so we've got these things called data views. So
great.
a data view you can add and say, so you've got an active filter, and this says, and then you can provide a Lambda expression to say, well, use the is active property. And what this will do, I haven't got one on here, but it will add a drop down list here, and you can kind of flick between your different data views. So
Okay,
you
yeah,
can
that's great. This is exactly what I really adored in using UEmatic. And yeah, my challenge for right now is to maybe refactor the UEmatic solution to use Fluidity, or check both and yeah, just play with it.
Definitely,
Yeah,
I need
so-
to have a play with this too. This looks fantastic, and I have to say, fantastic job on the documentation, because that incredibly detailed.
Yeah,
That was the key.
from logo to the documentation to the source code and the package, great work, and it looks amazing from the outside and from the inside.
Thank you. Well, we wanted to make sure that it was all well documented. So with this one, I wanted to make sure it was all documented from the offset. So pretty much, well, literally everything that is possible is all the different functions are defined and declared and tell you exactly what is possible. So all of it's on the documentation, so I can actually point people to it.
Wow, brilliant. Nice work. I look forward to giving that a go. So we're kind of running out of time, so maybe it's a good point to wrap up. Marcin, did you have anything you wanted to summarize with?
No, I just want to encourage people to buy tickets to Polish Festival. And we had this additional news and information about this live chat from the Umbraco HQ side. It's on Tuesday. It's a New Year's reception from Niels and Anders. And do we have anything else? I don't think so. Let's just play with all the packages and all the stuff released during this week, and not only, and find time to support package creators with our code or anything else. That's all from me.
Fantastic. Anything from you, Matt?
No, again, just a big thanks to everybody who is backing Unko. We really appreciate everybody's support. Go try packages out and just let us know if you've got any feedback so we can keep making things better.
Brilliant. I think that's all from us. Have a fantastic Friday, everyone. Happy Umbraco T-shirts day. My nice UK Festival 2015 T-shirt on today. Code Garden T-shirts, Poland Festival T-shirts, etc. Enjoy your day. Have a nice weekend. We'll see you next week for another umbraCoffee.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.